John Sargent with the Alarm Museum. We're in San Francisco at the Fairmont Hotel for the 2022 California Alarm Association.
Thanks, John. I'm Ralph W. Sevinor from the Alarm Museum, and I have the distinct pleasure of introducing an old friend, Mitch Reitman. We've known each other for many, many years, and your side is from the accounting side.
That's correct.
So tell me a little about, take little Mitch.
Little Mitch. Little Mitch grew up and the son of a naval officer in the 1960s and moved around the country quite a bit. In 1967, my father left the Navy and set up a medical practice in Fort Worth, Texas, where I lived for years and years. Went to the University of Texas and got an accounting degree. Went to work for a public accounting firm, Coopers & Lybrand, which is now PricewaterhouseCoopers. Large firm, 35,000 CPAs. Spent about 9 years there and left and spent a couple of years with a smaller firm with 800 CPAs. And left there in the early 90s and went to work for Protection One Security, which was in a growth mode. Back then doing acquisitions and developing financial modeling and things like that weren't really necessarily alarm related, but kind of set the pattern for what is the industry today. And I worked there for 8 years, left there and started, went to work for a company that was in the same model. Worked there for a year and a half, and that company was sold. And in 2001, I found myself without a job, not really sure if I wanted to be in the retail alarm business. So I hung up a shingle doing accounting for security companies, and people told me I was crazy and that there wasn't enough business out there. And here we are 21 years later. I've got over 300 clients, and we specialize in accounting for the security industry. But more than that, along the way, I got an alarm license. I learned how security companies work. I understand the industry, and I've been very, very involved in the associations because I believe it's very important to give back. Not take everything you're handed, not do everything that you can to make money, but it's important to have a comfortable lifestyle, but also give back and give back to the industry. And this is the kind of thing I like, is hoping maybe somebody can use this as something that helps them succeed in the industry.
Interesting. So currently you're still doing the accounting. Specializing in electronic security companies. And you've seen the whole gamut, larger companies, smaller companies. Any interesting stories?
It's our largest client. We do work for ADT, and our smallest client is a guy, I think he has 80 customers, and we do his billing, we fax him and aging, he sells a fax machine and help him run his business. My typical client has 800 to 2,000 customers and is trying to get to the next level, trying to manage technology and what's happening. Lots of fun things. I'm not sure how many things I can tell you about. We've done a lot of transactions, some big ones, some small ones, but I really like the industry. I like the dedication the owners have. It's a very tough industry. It runs 24/7, and but I really like the fact that I can take the knowledge I garner from hearing my successful clients and what they've done, how they've gotten there, and impart that somewhat to other clients who are looking for ways to succeed.
And you have really volunteered your time at trying to educate, telling alarm companies what they're doing wrong and how to do it right. And it's sometimes hard to get that through, but you've really volunteered your time on that.
Well, and really not as much what they're doing wrong, but how they can do things better. And it's interesting you said that, because when I was in the public accounting firm, in about the 4th or 5th year of being at the firm, they call everybody into a training session, and one of the sessions is they tell you you're very bright accountants, you're in the top of your class in college, you know a lot about accounting, but believe it or not everybody in the world wants to be an accountant, and not everybody in the world really cares what you know about accounting, right. And that they're very bright, talented people that run other companies, and they don't need to be talked down to or told what they're doing wrong. They want to succeed, they want to do things right, and it's the attitude I impart into my employees. We like accounting, we like to be bookkeepers, and none of our clients do, otherwise they wouldn't be there. And we look at the successes they've had, and we look at their strengths, and we try we try to match their accounting system with their strengths in the business. And I think it's great for a business, especially the way technology is, the way things are moving forward, to really have their finger on their financial performance, but also how cash moves through the business and the uniqueness.
What do you think, because you're unique, because you've actually got an alarm license, but CPA, an accounting background.
Right.
And so you have a snapshot on technology. What would you tell someone that they should look into, whether it be a service, a technology?
Well, the world right now of video verification and monitoring is tremendous, and the technology that's coming into the industry. You're so much better off having the customer use the system for something besides waiting for an event to occur, but to use the system every day to do things, having openings and closings where you get text messages and notifications when you have children coming home in the afternoon, having cameras to watch your business when you're home over the weekend. Any way you can automate your business, the customer's going to start using the system more, and the customer's not just waiting for an event to occur, and the customer's going to place value on what you do. And I don't see DIY as being a big threat to the industry, because DIY has a basic purpose, but when you want to get past that, and you want to get a system that really does something and helps a customer, then you need the professional alarm dealer and the professional alarm company, and that's what the future is.
Yeah, interesting. Wow.
Did you, I mean, originally I understand, the accounting part, but then at some point, I guess you recognized that mergers and acquisitions was also a add-on for you.
In public accounting, I did mergers and acquisitions, and that's why I went to Protection One, because they were built on. We told people that Protection One wasn't, in the early days, wasn't really an alarm company, it was a financial services company. And we grew by acquiring other companies, and we grew by establishing a dealer program, we grew by embracing the model that maybe everybody doesn't have $2,000 for new residential system, but they had $99 and $35 a month. So I knew how to do acquisitions on a large scale, and I took my large scale knowledge and applied it to the guy that's buying a couple hundred accounts because his friend's getting ready to retire and he'd like to have some more recurring revenue. Mm-hmm. But those same principles you use when you're doing a large acquisition work in a small one.
Yeah.
So, question, it's 2022 going on to 2023, and I remember when LIBOR was 0.08%, right? And so now all of a sudden interest rates have shot up. How does that affect the valuations?
I'm about to find out really what's happened, but it's going to affect valuations because you have to overcome your costs of carrying money. The present value of money, I've written a couple articles about that a dollar in the future is not worth as much as a dollar now. When you have interest rates and inflation at 7 or 8%, that's a much different world. But we've been through this before in the 90s. We went through it over 13 years ago. It will recover. But in the short term, I think business is going to be looking at interest costs and carrying costs and rates of return and risk and valuing things a little bit differently. The bigger issue I see than inflation is the fact that I think we have a looming depression or recession coming on. And I think that there won't be as much disposable money. And where commercial may not be quite as affected, residential system is a discretionary expense for most houses. And let's cut there. Let me start again. I see an issue.
Okay.
I see an issue with the residential market if you don't provide services that they really need, in that residential monitoring is a discretionary expense for a house. And when things start getting really tight and when things start getting really rough, they may cut their monitoring. So it's important for alarm companies to look ahead and say, what else can we sell this customer? But they don't look at this as just something that's sitting there waiting for an event to occur, actually something they use every day, that they're more likely to pay the monitoring bill and not cut it.
Excellent. Interesting. So if I could probe a little more on that. So right now everyone's got this fixation of 36x. Where do you think that median is going to go down to?
Well, a big part of the model, when you're looking at the 36x, a lot of people don't understand where that comes from. When you hear these multiples, the transaction price is expressed as a multiple. You don't set the transaction price based on a multiple of RMR. You figure out what the return is going to be from the investment. You reduce it every year by the expected attrition rate. You discount it by the present value of money. You come up with a number, then you divide that by the RMR. That number could be 36, it could be 27, it could be 42, but you're expressing it in a multiple, not setting it that way. Now there are other adjustments that we make sometimes. A smaller transaction, we may reduce a little bit more to account for the transaction fees. A large transaction, and maybe because you're taking a competitor out of the market or getting into a new market. But multiples don't set the price sets the multiple.
Right. That's interesting.
So, is there a difference to, more of a value if the company is all just one type of technology? Because I understand, on average, I was thinking it's 35 for a burglar alarm company. But if you have a company that has burglar, fire, access control, other, or even video, you're going to have a price range for that. But what if it's only fire alarm?
Well, fire tends to the higher side of the valuation, mainly because the margins are better. A fire alarm account may run $50 to $60 a month, and the monitoring cost isn't much more, even if it's twice as much.
It's usually
so
fire.
They're monitored. Plus, fire accounts are less likely to cancel.
Yeah.
Customers have to have fire accounts, and they perform a service. They use them every day. So you see multiples higher on fire accounts, but not just because they're what we consider better, stronger accounts, because since they are better, stronger accounts, they tend to last longer. They tend to have lower attrition rates. They tend to have better margins.
Yeah.
And so the multiple is better because the price is higher.
So would an average multiple be 5%, 10% more, or what? Is there, I mean, I just ballpark.
But they stand on their own, and sometimes a good fire company operator can get in the high 30s for their RMR because they're charging really nice rates that reflect the value of the service. But I see a lot of fire alarm company owners that don't really understand, and they're not charging enough, so the margins aren't there. So when you start analyzing the price is lower because they can charge more. They just don't realize that they can charge more. And that's a big issue I see in a lot of smaller companies. They're afraid to charge more. I've been in this industry 30 years. Monitoring rates really haven't increased much. And even at the central station level, they haven't increased much.
Why do you think that? Because there was a comparison between the cable industry and the alarm industry. The cable industry, they just kept on ramping and ramping and ramping, but the alarm industry really never increased significantly.
It's funny too, because I was on the city council 30 years ago, and the cable company had a franchise. They were the only cable company in the city, and I think I was paying $30 or $40 a month. Now cable service is a couple $100s a month, and there's competition. They've gone out and looked and seen that there's competition, but they've bundled in more services. They found more things to do. They've made themselves more desirable to the customer, and because of that, they can charge more. And in alarms, monitoring is monitoring, but if you can roll other things into the service, when we had our company, we charged $2 a month extra for what we called a medical service subscription. What it was a card you could have in your wallet, a pin that you wore around your neck, that you just had a number on it. You could call the central station and tell them that number, and they bring it up in front of them. Now we can do that on the internet.
Right.
But that was $2 a month of RMR that cost us nothing.
Right.
And you mentioned, it was a great question about some of the other services that are out there.
Mm-hmm.
I see video monitoring is a great example of things being priced properly, not being priced properly. Video monitoring takes a lot more work at the central station level, but it's a much more attractive thing to be selling to a customer. I see dealers trying to sell it at a 10 or 15% margin. They could be selling it at 100%, 150% margin, because it takes a lot more to monitor and a lot more to do, but it has tremendous benefits.
Yeah.
And really increases response, and law enforcement, from what I can tell, love it, because they tell us when they get a call, not really, I don't call it video verified, I call it video enhanced, and they can see that something's going on at the premises. They know that something's happening there. And most law enforcement that I know, they live their life to arrest bad guys. And if they know they're going to get a bad guy, they're more likely to beat it over there and get the bad guy. And I think that's great. The other thing that video does is it lowers false alarms. We had a situation in my office where I got a call at 10 o'clock in the morning on a Saturday that we gotten a door open and 3 motions. Typically you go ahead and dispatch on that, but I pulled up my cameras, and there's my employee there at the keypad trying to punch her number in there, and she's not getting it. The phone's ringing away in the office.
Right. And that would have been a false dispatch.
That would have been a false dispatch, so I was able to stop that.
Right.
And that's one thing I think companies should be selling customers on. This is a tremendous service. We have maybe 8 or 9 calls in my office for things going on in my parking lot, where I have video monitoring, where they watch the cameras at night.
Right.
And I one time asked the police officers, I said, I'm amazed that so much is happening in my parking lot. And they said, something's happening in every parking lot, you're just seeing it.
Yeah, okay.
That's true. This is great. This is great. Anything else you want to add?
I think embrace technology, embrace what's going on out there, embrace the RMR model. I also see a lot in the social media that's related to the alarm company. You guys just stuck in the old model that you have to sell a system for $1,800. It doesn't matter if you get monitoring, and monitoring's running the industry, but they're usually saying that on their $100 cell phones from their leased cars or leased trucks and going back to their office that they're renting.
Yeah.
A lot of businesses running this model, we just don't realize it. And RMR is important. RMR is an important thing to do. Make sure you're doing it fairly and properly. Make sure you're pricing it right.
And is the RMR so important for the average company because it's a leveler, or because it's a valuation based upon if they sell?
It's a,
where the economy goes up and down, the monitoring typically is more of a...
well, I'll give you a good example. The employee retention credit requires a 20% drop in revenue, quarter in 2021 over 2019. Most of my clients couldn't qualify because our RMR kept coming in.
Wow.
They were in the middle of a pandemic, places were locked down, they couldn't get out to do new installs and do service, but they realized that wasn't much of their business.
Right.
But the core of their business, the RMR, kept coming in month after month, and the revenues really didn't drop.
Yeah.
But their expenses didn't change either. Their expenses actually went down. A lot of my clients were more profitable through the pandemic than they were before.
Right. Yeah, interesting.
Don't get so focused on RMR that you lose sight of everything else.
Exactly.
It's so important to differentiate your product and sell something and get some money for it, but don't get so focused on that you think RMR is bad that you neglect it.
Yeah. It's a great business in that respect, not to be contrite, but we really save lives. We're making money, right? We're giving stability to employees. It's been a great business.
It's great, and I love getting out to the associations and dealing with the people that want to improve their profession. I'm disappointed in how low participation rate there is in the industry, how few companies actually show up and do things.
We're at the California Alarm Association meeting. I'm amazed at the amount of people that they've had.
Now this is an exception. This is great that there are this many people at conventions, but I go to conventions in large states, and there are 15 to 20 companies here, and they'll change the laws, they'll change the ordinances, they'll change something, and companies don't know about it because they're not going to their own conventions.
What do you think the CAA does differently to attract 300, 400 people?
I think the CAA has a lot of momentum. Jerry Lenander's done a great job of growing this convention, growing what's happening. They provide training, they provide education. I've got to tell you, I belong or do work for 27 or 28 associations. We do their tax returns for free and we help them with issues, so I belong to them. I very rarely hear from most of the associations, but when there's one of the chapters are meeting in California, I'll get a call 3 or 4 days before from one of Jerry's people telling me the Inland Empire Association meeting on Tuesday night, are you planning to attend? You got to remind business people, they don't live and die for these
true.
meetings, and Jerry's very good about staying in front of his membership.
Yeah, that's great. That's great. So this is fantastic. John, any
No, is there anything we didn't talk about you'd like to mention?
Well, one thing that's near and dear to you now, John, is false alarm reduction.
Yeah.
And that's one thing that I think every company should be concerned about. And I think that I've been very involved in it. We do the books for SEAC, and we've helped other states with their false alarm reduction. But the mindset in law enforcement has got to be that when they're going to an alarm call, it's something legitimate and something that they're going to get to do. Like I said before, police officers live to throw bad people in jail, and SEAC has done wonders going out to law enforcement and explain to them what's happening. And I've been very involved in the Texas Association, and we started now giving $5,000 a year to SEAC because we know the dangers of verified response and what it can do to the industry. And the nice thing about SEAC is you don't have to reinvent the wheel.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, this is great. I appreciate the time you spent. A lot of fun. And also, on behalf of John and myself and everyone in the industry, thanks for everything that you've done.
Well, thank you, and thank you everybody that watches us for coming and being interested in such a great industry.
Thank you.
All right.